Hey everyone, welcome to this video, which I think you will find very, very interesting, hopefully. And this is basically me doing some tech predictions for the 2020s. So let's get into it. So it's going to be a very interesting decade in the field of technology. We've got AI, we've got quantum computing, we have blockchain. But what I also want to do in this video is not just talk about the usual stuff that you hear about every day. I want to talk about things like materials, semiconductors, things that you may not be aware of, just to give you a bit of a full picture into what's coming. So it's shaping up to be a very exciting decade, and let's get started. So I'm going to start by talking about 5G. Now, 5G is something you've heard of, and we all know that it's coming. But do you really know what 5G is all about? So let's try to unpack this. 5G will bring significantly enhanced data rates for mobile devices, which sounds like a nice upgrade, but why would it be a generational shift? Why would it be anything significantly better? Well, there's two things. So firstly, the jump in speed is pretty significant. You hear numbers of anywhere from 100 times what 4G gave us on a mobile device. How they do it is actually pretty amazing. But also, the amount of devices that can be packed into 1 square kilometer is actually orders of magnitude bigger. Now, if human beings are just using their cell phones to check email and check social media, what would be the benefit of having those faster data speeds? It's quite amazing when you think about it that this little piece of plastic communicates up there in the sky to a tower that's somewhere nearby. And what we're saying with 5G is now the rate of communication is going to be as fast as the physical fiber that we have in the ground. But that's not the only thing. With more devices per square mile, you're going to have the phone, the glasses, the watch, the t-shirt. You even get the t-shirt. So 5G is really going to be something else. So the first thing I will say is that 5G is not necessarily something that's going to benefit the average cell phone consumer. 5G is for the machines, okay? So IoT, connected devices, and then later in the decade, I'm predicting that we will finally start seeing the machine economy come online, and it will actually be thanks to 5G. 5G will enable the machine economy. There's another piece that I'll talk about in a minute. So let's rewind a little bit and talk about IoT and devices. Having lots of devices on the edge means that there's more demand for connectivity. I don't even know how the IP address situation will work. And basically, you need the network capability to handle all of these devices. And that is exactly what 5G will give us. However, the thing to keep in mind is that that second piece, more devices per square kilometer, that is what will unlock real value from IoT, machine learning at the edge, big data at the edge, and even AI at the edge. Having those devices. Otherwise, the 4G networks of today will simply be overloaded. You wouldn't be able to put these solutions in practice. Now, I don't have to tell you that we are going to see microcontrollers, what you may know as CPUs, as well as hardware that can process things like neural networks for deep learning everywhere. These chips will be shrunken down, put into devices, not just like your phones, where we're starting to see that already over the last 2 to 3 years, but smart watches, smart clothing, sensors in appliances, and of course things like their factory environments, manufacturing environments. And all of these devices will talk to each other. Okay, so I'll show you an example of one of these IoT devices. I've got one here, which is the MX chip IoT dev kit. It's just fallen out. So let's just get a better look. So these devices are getting better and better by the year. It's basically got everything that you want on it. So you can see there, you've got audio, you've got USB out. There's two buttons here and here where you can basically control it. There's a screen. This is an ARM Cortex CPU. The best part is if you look at the bottom, the magnetometer, pressure, accelerometer, gyroscope, humidity and temperature sensor. So there's all those sensors there at the bottom. And what I would need to do is plug it in. What's in the box? Just a description, and here's some of the specs and a circuit diagram. I'm going to plug this in, and let's see if it comes on. Okay, so there we go. Connecting. So I haven't set up the Wi-Fi yet. Just put it on. There's a reset button. There's two LEDs. There's a mic. I don't think it's going to get to the Wi-Fi. Decent screen. Azure user. So these ones are set up to work really well connecting to the IoT platform in Azure. Now, as these get cheaper, this one goes for $35, $40. It just wants some configuration information, as you can see there. These are going to get smaller, more powerful. ARM CPUs used in cell phones. As you can see at the bottom, a whole bunch of sensors. You can do almost anything. It's very easy to test, to write code, deploy code, syncs up with the cloud, as you can see there. These are going to be everywhere, and while this one is a Wi-Fi model, you're going to get 5G models. Little devices like this that have 5G radios on board. And that's where, in the 2020s, these things are going to be everywhere, and a whole bunch of new solutions are going to be developed that we don't even think about at this point in time. We wouldn't even predict how this will change business, society. But just imagine processing capability everywhere, data sync capability from those edge devices, and basically intelligence anywhere. If you can imagine intelligence anywhere, then you can imagine what we could do with these devices. So I had one of these lying around, and I thought, let me just show you what I'm talking about and why this is real. So the one concept that you need to learn a little bit about when it comes to this is something called swarm computing. Swarm computing basically refers to a whole host of devices connected and working together in sync. Now, an early example of swarm computing will be autonomous cars when we get to see that. I'm not sure if we will see full autonomy in the 2020s. I'll touch on that in a minute. But think nanobots, think sensors working together in a manufacturing environment, constantly communicating with each other in a process, so that a device at the end of the process gets some input from a device at the beginning of a process and makes adjustments accordingly. Those sensors, those smart devices, it's not just sensors, will be able to do that and work as a team. That's a very simple definition of swarm computing. But in a factory environment, it would be very easy to implement that from a network connectivity perspective. Now, the real value is where these devices are all around you. Your watch, talking to your phone, personal area networks, and things like that. All of this will be powered by 5G. Now, 5G also enables things, scenarios that we didn't have today. For example, not all parts of the world are able to put down fiber and cable, okay? And 4G was very good because you could deliver internet to these remote locations. And things like, not just email, but things like video, which is quite amazing. If I told you 10 or even 15 years ago that on your little cell phone, you would be able to wirelessly watch a YouTube video, you would be pretty amazed, let alone that you could do it in 4K. I mean, I remember when YouTube first came out, just watching on a computer, we didn't always have the bandwidth for it, and these video files were quite large. So people were like, well, is this really going to take off? And of course, we have YouTube, we have Netflix, video on demand over the internet. Now, what 5G will enable are scenarios such as the following. Imagine you're in a remote location and there's no physical connectivity, and you need to do something that's really data intensive, and you might have to do this in an emergency scenario. Well, people have theorized that a doctor sitting in a developed city could, over a 5G connection, perform surgery. That's the level of shift in bandwidth, in connectivity and latency. Apparently, I heard a number that we should see 4 millisecond latency with 5G connectivity. It will obviously vary from network to network. Now, this is hugely exciting. This gives you scenarios that you wouldn't normally have, and it will enable you to do new things. So if you think that just checking your email is going to be faster, or you can now watch 4K videos, yeah, okay. As a normal consumer, that's what you're going to be able to do. But in remote parts of the world, the ability to deliver really different types of services via 5G, that is the real value of 5G. Of course, the amount of data collected by your humans, yourself, cars, even animals, endangered species, we can now collect huge amounts of data. Of course, data privacy is something else to consider. And we now have the capability to upload this vast amounts of data via 5G. It will be a combination of machine learning done on the edge, where we don't need to send all the data up, but in some cases, we will have to send all of that data up into the cloud, and that is another reason why 5G is so important. So I think people are underestimating the need for 5G. It's not just a slightly better level of infrastructure, faster YouTube videos. That's a very condescending way of looking at it. 5G could, if used properly, deliver a real societal shift and unlock new business scenarios, connected devices, connected supply chains, all the way through the end of the 2020s, when we'll start seeing the machine economy. Let's talk about the machine economy. So what the machine economy is, people have theorized about this for a number of years, is basically having interconnected machines work autonomously, and entire value chains are automated. Supply chains, value chains. And this should bring a new level of efficiency. This should bring speed. There may be an impact to jobs, of course. I'm highlighting all the traditional concerns, but that's just one of those things. So, and that's a different discussion. Now, are we really close to this? Is this some kind of fallacy? How would this actually look? So, I would argue that the start of the machine economy is what we're seeing in the financial services industry nowadays with things like RPA. RPA stands for Robotic Process Automation. And I've seen it being implemented with various levels of success in financial services especially. Some people have said that it's a bit overrated, they're not getting value from it, but other institutions have derived tremendous value from RPA projects. Now that for me is the start. You have a business process that can be fully automated. The machine economy is when my RPA systems talk to your RPA systems. And then the value chain becomes automated. So I'm not sure if that makes sense. And we're going to do this not just with back-end systems, because we can do that today. There's nothing stopping us from delivering that today, where on my enterprise IT back-end, I have really well-written processes that are automated, very robust, very reliable, and they can scale. Maybe they're running in the cloud. And we have some sort of API, also using maybe the cloud, which makes these type of things easier. And when a process finishes on my side, if I'm a supplier to you, I then hand it over to your automated process on your side, and so on and so on down the chain to your customer, for example. And that's how supply chains and value chains will become automated. Now with 5G, you're going to have dependencies on non-enterprise hardware, software, or pieces of that supply chain, value chain, and that is where 5G will actually make this possible. Reliability of the data connection, the amount of data that can be transmitted, and of course we're expecting data costs to go down with 5G. We'll see about that. That may be a bit controversial in some countries, but some countries are actually getting it right. So all of that coming together, machine economy, then the other part that I need to talk about would be the blockchain and smart contract piece, which I believe will enable that even further, along with 5G. So 5G is giving you the infrastructure for edge devices. Cloud is giving you the infrastructure for all enterprise IT to really scale and do amazing things. Okay, so you've got 5G, you've got cloud, then you've got smart contracts and blockchains. And what this will do is basically enable autonomy, decentralization, and with the crypto piece, automated payments as part of that supply chain. So if you're a banker, you might be a little scared about what I'm saying, but it's coming. So there's actually a blockchain being worked on at the moment called Iota. And Iota shares some similarities with Ethereum in that it's a smart contract platform, but Iota is being designed for the machine economy, for machine-to-machine communication. Okay? If Iota takes off, we will see this in industry everywhere. We will see supply chains, value chains fully automated, regardless of the infrastructure. And then, if you're a supplier to me, and we have this automated process, we even have the mechanism for finalization of payment via the asset, the crypto asset on the blockchain. I think, though, that there will be multiple methods of finalization. You're going to see a crossover between some of these blockchains coming along and then the established one, and I think Ethereum is by far in the lead. So I think a lot of these will have crossover with the Ethereum blockchain, and that is why Ethereum is just such an exciting project. I've called Ethereum, just out of interest, the most exciting technological project of the next 2 to 3 years. And I know that quantum computing might sound like the most, and it probably is over the next decade, but quantum computing will solve a very specific type of problem. It won't be used in everyday situations, but what the Ethereum autonomous decentralized platform offers is something that could really change society in the first half of the 2020s. So that's a long-winded explanation of where the machine economy will come into. So that was part one, and I'm gonna end the video there as it's too long. Look out for part two, where I talk about materials breakthroughs, graphene, space exploration, nanotechnology, all of those things coming. So I hope you enjoyed that part one, and be on the lookout for part two, which I'll release very, very soon.